Hello, everyone. My name is Twila Walkeden. I'm the Executive Director of the Weyburn Chamber of Commerce, here again with our Facebook Face-to-Face. Today, we are pleased to have with us the Acting Chief of Police of the Weyburn Police Service, Rod Stafford. Rod is going to be talking today about some really important information with respect to policing in Weyburn. So welcome to Chamber Face-to-Face, Rod.
Thanks, Twila. It's great to be with you this afternoon through the miracle of Zoom technology, which is getting a fair share of use in the last month. And my pleasure to be able to chat with you and chamber members and viewers about what's going on in Weyburn with regards to policing.
Super, super. So, Rod, from a law enforcement perspective, what have you seen just with respect to maybe some of the activity since mid-March? Mid-March is really when we saw, a lot of the restrictions being put into place with public gatherings, etc. And so, have you had many complaints? Do you see anything different from a law perspective point of view?
It's pretty much business as normal. We've had a few complaints around group size. Most of those, in fact, I think all of those have been checked out and found to be unfounded. In a couple of cases, the groups were meeting out of view of the public, or at least that was what the information was. And when we went and investigated that, found out they were in full compliance with the public health orders. The other couple of complaints we had with respect to group size were family events. And we investigated those and found out that they either weren't borne out by fact, or people were thinking of having an event that hadn't yet come up, and through a bit of education and sharing the provisions of the public health orders, they decided not to have that. So we've been very fortunate in terms of the number and types of calls we've had with relation to COVID-19. The bulk of them by far are self-quarantine issues, where people have perhaps seen somebody out that they thought have returned too soon from, distant travel to be out. In those cases, it was found, again, almost exclusively that the people were self-isolating properly, that perhaps they were back a little sooner than the neighbors had expected them, and that added to the timeline. And we've had 100% cooperation from the people we have talked to and dealt with. And anything that was any kind of a question at all, and that's been the practice since the outset, is referred to public health. And they check it out further, and then they get back to us only if they require our further assistance. So really, it's been not very daunting for the Weyburn Police Service. The people that we've dealt with have been very cooperative, and just a big thank you go out to the community because they are embracing this with the seriousness that it does deserve, and that is certainly showing up in the low number and the types of calls that we're getting.
Yeah, yeah. Even when you do a bit of a drive about around Weyburn, you certainly see that there's a marked decrease in traffic. And I think the calls that you speak of just shows that the public is really out there looking out for each other, right? And we just want everyone to stay healthy. We want everyone to act within those self-quarantining guidelines and, keep everybody, healthy and away from that COVID virus. So, you talked about public health and you also talked about traffic stops. So, obviously with fewer vehicles on the road, there's fewer vehicles on our streets. Have you, experienced much concern, or have you seen, many erratic drivers or anything like that? People are just looking for a method of release sometimes. And what does that yield with respect to policing?
Again, you're right. I mean, you just have to look out your front window or drive around town to see that the level of traffic is almost non-existent. Of course, there is still some there. Because of the risk to our members and dealing with documents and having to get, very close, often, standing right beside the vehicle to converse with the driver, we've asked them to take a very, not sure what word you would use, but very discretionary approach, I guess, in terms of routine traffic enforcement. We are still out there looking for the erratic drivers, the aggressive drivers. We're out there looking for impaired drivers that have some kind of driving irregularities. because those things add to injuries. Not that routine traffic enforcement doesn't, but people that perhaps are engaging in more high-risk driving with higher speeds. We've had a couple of significant speeds issued for tickets, and we've seen in other jurisdictions where people are using the lack of vehicles on the road for a raceway. We haven't seen that around Weyburn yet, but yes, we have kind of curtailed our routine traffic enforcement just to protect everybody, but we are still actively out there, and we're still actively out and watching for aggressive driving behavior, distracted driving behavior, and impaired drivers.
Good to hear, good to hear. And really, with the COVID-19 epidemic, of course, with the Chamber of Commerce, we see some businesses being closed and some, loss of work, people losing their jobs, people having the uncertainty of what's to hold in the future. Obviously, that could yield in some domestic issues. What's the Weyburn Police Service seeing with respect to that? Are you seeing any different numbers showing up or different types of calls with respect to domestic issues?
I think the types of domestics we're going to are very typical, if you can have a typical domestic, typical for Weyburn, I guess, what we're used to seeing. In terms of numbers, we're down slightly March 2019 to today over March 2020 to today. I don't have an explanation for that. It's only down 4 calls, so it's not significant. We were expecting to certainly see more domestic type calls, interpersonal violence calls, and we were certainly expecting to see more mental health related calls. And that hasn't happened, and don't have a really good explanation for that. Perhaps, it has been really fairly nice out. People can get out if they're not required to self-isolate, and within the bounds that the public health officer has laid out for, going for walks and just not being close to people. So people haven't been cooped up literally, and maybe that's helping a little bit. People can at least get away from each other for short periods, go downtown for groceries, go out for a walk. I'm not sure whether that's a reason or not. Again, to be honest, we were expecting an increase in numbers on both those fronts that we haven't seen yet. And now that it is, spring is finally here, I think, with the temperatures we're going to see this week. And again, people are out and walking and still obeying the social distancing guidelines. That I think that's helpful for us. And we'll see as time goes on. All it takes is one blip to skew those numbers. But right now we're very pleased with what we're seeing.
Well, that's such encouraging news. And, I'm going to leave it off at here, Rod. I just want to, on behalf of the Weyburn Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and all of our members, express gratitude to the Weyburn Police Service. You're there on the front lines, protecting our community and making sure that we're all safe. During COVID-19, there's that extra dimension of keeping our communities safe. And again, we just wanted to, really extend our appreciation to everything that your police service does going forward. And certainly, is there anything that you would like to add in conclusion?
Twila, I think just that, again, thank you for the thank you. Basically, I mean, with a few revisions, as business as normal for us. And again, if I can reiterate anything, just thank the community for embracing the COVID-19 issue with the seriousness that I believe it deserves. That certainly helped us in terms of the number and types of calls. And it does show that, again, we are a community that is concerned with each other's well-being, and we don't want to put anybody in harm's way. And this too will pass, and it will be a memory, hopefully sooner than later. But again, we're dealing with everything that comes through our office. We're not taking calls because of the COVID issue. It's just the manner in which we take certain calls has been modified a little bit for everybody's safety. But again, just thank you for the opportunity to speak to the chamber members and the wider following on YouTube. And again, thank you to the community for your support.
Absolutely. Acting Police Chief Rod Stafford was with us today on Chamber Face to Face. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and please stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.